the story of the useless tree becomes even more powerful when we realize that Zhuangzi was speaking about us. The tree represents every person who has felt overlooked, underestimated, or judged by standards that were never truly their own. In modern life, usefulness is often measured by productivity. How much money do you make? How many hours do you work? How quickly can you respond, produce, and achieve? We are taught that our worth depends on how efficiently we can be turned into something valuable for others. The useless tree refused that role because its wood could not be shaped into beams or furniture. It escaped the axe. What the world called a defect became its protection. While the useful trees were cut down one after another, the useless tree remained standing, growing larger with each passing year. Think about how often people exhaust themselves trying to become indispensable. They say yes to every request. They take on extra work. They fight for recognition and fear being forgotten. At first, this may bring praise, but it also brings greater demands. The more useful they become, the more the world asks of them. Zhuangzi invites us to consider a different possibility. Perhaps survival, peace, and freedom are sometimes more valuable than admiration. This does not mean hiding your talents or pretending to be incapable. The Taoist lesson is subtler. It is about not allowing your entire identity to be consumed by the need to prove your value. A person who is always performing for others eventually loses touch with their own nature. Notice what the useless tree gained. It offered shade to travelers, shelter to birds, and beauty to everyone who passed by. Its value was real, but it was not the kind of value that could be bought, sold, or measured by a carpenter. The same is true for many of the most important things in human life. Kindness cannot be measured on a spreadsheet. Wisdom rarely appears on a resume. Inner peace has no market price, yet these are often the qualities that leave the deepest impact on the people around us. When others underestimate you, they may overlook your potential, but they also leave you room to grow. They stop trying to control your path. Their low expectations become a space in which you can develop quietly, without the constant pressure of performance. This is why Taoist masters often preferred simplicity and obscurity. They understood that the person who does not need to appear extraordinary is much harder to manipulate. Their strength comes from within, not from the applause of the crowd. The useless tree teaches a paradox that is easy to hear but difficult to live. What the world dismisses may contain a hidden freedom. The moment you stop building your life around other people's approval, you begin to discover a strength that cannot be taken away, and that strength becomes even clearer when we look at another Taoist image, water, the softest thing in nature, slowly wearing down the hardest stone. If the useless tree teaches us the power of being underestimated, water teaches us something even more surprising. It shows us that true strength does not always look strong. Imagine standing beside a river. The water flows quietly around rocks, never arguing with them, never trying to overpower them. It bends, changes direction, and continues on its path. At first glance, it seems weak compared to the solid stone. But return years later, and the river is still flowing. The rocks, however, have slowly slowly changed. Their sharp edges have been worn smooth. Their shape has been transformed by something far softer than themselves. Lao Tzu used this image to explain one of the greatest truths in Taoism. He wrote that nothing in the world is softer than water, yet nothing surpasses it in overcoming what is hard. Water wins not because it is aggressive, but because it is patient. It does not force its way forward, it simply follows its nature. This is the heart of Wu Wei, often translated as effortless action. It does not mean doing nothing or avoiding responsibility. Instead, it means acting without unnecessary struggle. It is the ability to move with life instead of constantly pushing against it. Think about the people who leave the strongest impression on you. They are rarely the loudest voices in the room. They do not need to dominate every conversation or prove that they are right. There is a quiet confidence about them. They listen more than they speak. They respond instead of reacting. Like water, they adapt without losing themselves. Modern life encourages the opposite. We are told to fight for attention, defend every opinion, and make sure everyone knows our achievements. But constant resistance drains our energy. Every argument we insist on winning, every person we try to impress, and every criticism we cannot let go becomes another battle that steals our peace. Water reminds us that not every obstacle must be confronted. Sometimes the wisest choice is to flow around it. Sometimes silence carries more power than another explanation. Sometimes walking away is not surrender, it is freedom. When people underestimate you, you do not have to correct them. When they misunderstand you, you do not have to convince them. Your life is not a courtroom where you must defend your character every day. The Tao teaches that peace comes when you stop trying to control what others think. The useless tree remained standing because it never tried to become something it was not. Water shapes mountains because it never stops being itself. Together, these lessons reveal a quiet kind of strength, one that cannot be measured by applause, titles, or recognition. And perhaps this is the greatest secret of Taoist wisdom. The less you need to prove your worth, the more freely you are able to live. As we come to the end of this journey, take a moment to think about how much of your life has been shaped by the desire to be recognized. How many decisions have been made because you wanted approval? How much energy has been spent trying to prove that you are capable, intelligent, or worthy? The Tao offers a quiet invitation. It does not ask you to give up your dreams or hide your abilities. Instead, it asks you to release the burden of constantly proving yourself. There is a profound difference between growing for your own fulfillment and performing for someone else's approval. The useless tree never became famous, yet it lived a long and meaningful life. Water never competes with the mountain, yet over time it shapes the mountain itself. Neither one tries to impress the world. They simply follow their own nature, and in doing so, they become examples of lasting strength. This is the wisdom of Wu Wei. Life becomes lighter when you stop forcing every outcome. You begin to notice opportunities that once seemed invisible. You spend less time arguing and more time understanding, less time comparing and more time living. Ironically, when you stop chasing recognition, you often earn genuine respect because your confidence no longer depends on other people's opinions. being underestimated is not always a disadvantage. Sometimes it is protection. It allows you to learn without pressure, to make mistakes without constant judgment, and to grow quietly while others are distracted by appearances. Those who overlook you may think they know your limits, but they cannot see the person you are becoming. The next time someone doubts you, resist the urge to immediately prove them wrong. Ask yourself whether their opinion truly deserves your energy. Often, the greatest victory is not changing someone else's mind, but refusing to let their judgment control your peace. Imagine waking up tomorrow with nothing to prove. Imagine doing your work because it matters to you, speaking only when your words bring value, and walking your own path without constantly looking over your shoulder for approval. That kind of freedom cannot be given by praise, and it cannot be taken away by criticism. Perhaps that is why Taoist wisdom has endured for thousands of years. It reminds us that the deepest strength is often invisible. The quiet person may possess the greatest wisdom. The overlooked individual may have the greatest freedom. The softest force may ultimately prove to be the strongest. So, the next time life makes you feel unseen or underestimated, remember the useless tree that survived because no one wanted to cut it down. Remember the river that patiently carved through solid rock without ever raising its voice. And most importantly, remember this: you do not need to convince the world of your worth. Like the tree, stand firmly in your own nature. Like water, keep moving with quiet purpose. In time, your life, not your words, will speak for itself. Thank you for watching. If this reflection resonated with you, consider subscribing for more explorations of ancient wisdom and how it can help us live calmer, wiser, and more meaningful lives. Until next time, take care and keep following the path that brings you peace.